So depending on where you are in the country, spring may have already sprung, it's about to spring, or spring is over. We live outside of Washington, D.C., and I always say spring is 2 weeks long. It's like the weather changes, it gets a little bit warm, things pop, bam, we're into summer. Like, we have the shortest spring ever. But I did want to post this video about some of my favorite spring eyeshadow palettes. Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Melissa. So what makes a good spring eyeshadow palette? For me, spring kind of is a lighter look and more like springy colors, not pastels because I don't think pastels are very wearable, but just lighter, brighter looks. And also I feel like less complicated looks. Okay, those two things that I just mentioned do not apply to the look I'm wearing on my face today, which is using one of these spring palettes. But I'll get into that a little bit later on. Let's jump into some of my favorite spring eyeshadow palettes. I'm going to start off with like an OG favorite, one that I've had quite a long time. It is no longer available, but I wanted to mention it in case this is something you have in your collection, and it is the IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty palette. This is quite possibly one of my favorite spring palettes ever, and the reason is, well, first of all, forget this. Why did they even bother with that? That's the Transforming Pearl. It does nothing. What I love about this is that it has such a beautiful range of like mid-tone colors. You know, if you take out this first row and like these last couple, just beautiful mid-tone shades, and they make for great like one and done looks. They're just absolutely perfect. And then if you want something a little deeper, it's there. If you want something a little lighter, it's there. I love this. So if you have this, pull it out for spring because it's phenomenal. I wish they hadn't stopped selling it, but I understand. The next palette I want to talk about is one that's relatively new to my collection, and it's from Aether Beauty. This is the Rose Quartz Crystal Gemstone palette. This, I think, is really quite a beautiful palette. And what I like about this is it does have some of these like lighter shades that I like so much, but it also has a couple of deeper shades. You can kind of go like a smokier gray, you can go a little bit more mauvey, and these shades in the middle here are, some of them are kind of like a duotone. I don't know if you can tell by these little swatches. Man, I just love this palette. I think this makes for a beautiful spring look any day of the week. Work, play, hanging out, going shopping. Take your pick. Next up, I wanted to feature something from the drugstore, and this is from e.l.f. This is the Nude Rose palette. Oops, can I open it? Yes, I can. And this, I think, is quite a beautiful palette with a great shade range. It has a nice assortment of mattes and shimmers, and it just goes, just a really beautiful radiant range. Super pretty. So if you're looking for something that is a little bit more affordable, this is a great one. I would love it if you would leave in the comments below how many of these palettes you have in your collection right now, because I think that would be really interesting for me and anybody else to see, like, are these super popular palettes, or, you know, is there something totally new here? I did not choose anything brand new, and the reason why I didn't is I hadn't found anything that really caught my attention that I would want to purchase new. I did buy a few new palettes at the end of the year, and one of them is in this grouping. And other than that, I felt like I really wanted to shop my stash, see what I had and what I could bring out and use this spring. All right, let's move on. This next palette is from Tarte. It's the Tartelette Amazonian Clay Matte Palette. I have talked about this palette before on my channel because I think it is so smartly laid out, because each row is like a color story and this column is really dark, like liner shades. One of the reasons why I picked this for spring, first of all, it's all matte, so that appeals to a lot of people. It appeals to me to have a beautiful matte look, but I feel like it covers a lot of bases. It has a great neutral row, it has kind of a mauve-y row, and then it has kind of a little bit of a warmer row. This is one that I have enjoyed for quite a while, and it's a great palette. This is a great, like, everyday look, work look. It's just a real workhorse in your collection. So these next three palettes are very similar. And I pulled them because they all speak spring to me, and I happen to own all of them. And I thought, oh, I should pick one, but I decided not to just pick one. I figured I'd mention them all kind of as a group because you may have one and not the other, and that would just go, oh, hey, yeah, I should pull that out again. So keep that in mind as we go through these next three palettes. And the first one is an OG from Urban Decay. It's the Naked 3 palette. It's that kind of cool tone mauve-y palette. And actually, I feel like the e.l.f. palette could be a sister palette to this Urban Decay palette. I think there's a lot of similarities between them. I'm really trying hard not to blind you, but a lot of similarities between these two palettes. This palette does have slightly more shimmer to it than some of the other palettes. It's not as balanced, but the matte shades are really beautiful. There's maybe 4 matte shades, you know, kind of light, medium, and very dark. What I like about this is the shimmer shades are really beautiful, and they can give you a really great spring look. Some of them you could just use as a gentle wash all over your lid if you want kind of a simplified spring look and nothing too done up or complicated. But you could also do a really pretty smoky eye if you kind of focused down here. I had to pull this because it is like the OG spring palette, in my opinion. So the next two palettes are from Colourpop. It's the Flutterby palette and the Making Mauves palette. This is the one that's newer to my collection. There is a lot of overlap between these two, so if you have one, you don't need both of these. But I'm a sucker for a great mauve tone, neutral, cool tone palette. So let's go ahead and start and talk about the Colourpop Flutterby palette. This definitely has a little bit more shimmer glitter to it. It has this pressed glitter shade here, which can definitely liven up a look if you want something kind of special for going out. And, you know, these two shades here and here are pretty shiny as well. But it has some other ones that are really great for like a neutral look, for blending out your crease. This is a really nice, well-balanced palette. I do wish it had a brow bone shade. It does not, but remember that trick I mentioned with my Project Pan update. If a palette doesn't have a really great brow bone color for you, like this one, go ahead and use your setting powder. If it's a great kind of neutral, it matches your skin, it'll give you some brightness up there. So just a reminder. This Making Mauves palette is beautiful. There are some really beautiful looks. This whole center row is a little bit more glittery, sparkly, shinier, and the rest are mattes or pseudo mattes, you know, the kind of mattes that have, you know, they look like they have a little sparkle in it, like a little glitter in it, but when you put it on the eye, that doesn't really show. So I don't know why they do that. There's probably a good reason. I just don't know what it is. But just, again, a great palette for just a one and done look, a great palette for creating like a smokier eye look. But again, this is missing that like brow bone shade that maybe you would want to have in a palette. I always like when a palette has it all. It has everything I'd possibly need to create an entire look. Let's wrap this up with a palette that I'm wearing today. This also happens to be the palette that I have in my Project Pan, and it is the LORAC Pro 2 palette. I think I talked about this a little bit when I introduced this to my Project Pan. This was something new. It's not that I'm expecting to pan this palette, but I want to use it as much as I am interested in using it for the month, and then I'll swap it out for something else. This is a pretty well-loved palette, and one of the things I mentioned that I loved about it was this green shade, and so I did use that in today's look. So I thought what I would do, I knew I was going to be wearing this little outfit. We're going over to some neighbors for a socially distant happy hour, outdoors. I'm hoping this will be warm enough because it's not that great a night out. But I have this little camo t-shirt and a little utility jacket on, and I wanted something kind of coordinated with that. To walk you through what I did to get this look, I started off with Nectar as just like in my crease as like a transition shade. Then I deepened it with this cool gray, which I'm in love with. This is such a great shade for deepening your crease and giving you a little bit more definition in your eye. And then I jumped over to this green shade, which is Jade, and I put that all over the mobile part of my lid. And, you know, blending. Buff went along my brow bone. And then when I got done, I was like, oh, I want a little brightness in this, like the inner corner. I'm not one to put it like right here in the corner of my eye because my eyes are so hooded and I feel like it looks a little strange. So I like to add a little brightness just in the corner of the mobile part of my lid. And I went into Rosé to do that, just to give a little touch of brightness. And then on the lower lash line, I went back into Jade and did that on the outer portion and back into Nectar to kind of blend it all the rest of the way under my lash line. Oh, I feel like I've touched my face and I have glitter everywhere. I want to get that little piece of glitter off my face. Yes, I am using a little bit of Scotch tape to lift that. So this look I came up with for today is almost the opposite of what I was saying the criteria were for spring palettes, but this is just the direction it went that I kind of was excited about. And it is kind of a dark, dreary day, so I did go for like a deeper smoky eye. Sometimes you just can't take the smoky eye off the girl. The rest of the products I'm using on my face are all from my Project Pan. I'll put a link up here. Now I've lost my orientation, which side it's on. In case you want to see what's in that group of products. But today I used this little liquid lipstick from Fenty Beauty. And this is called Uncuffed. I just thought it kind of went with this look today. I upload videos every Saturday morning, and I'll include a link to last week's video right up here. And I'll include some other suggestions from the YouTube algorithm for some other options that you might be interested in watching. Take care, and I'll see you real soon. Mwah!